Welcome to Hollywood Insider Help, where you can learn more about how to earn a good living as an author, screenwriter, producer, or podcaster. Remember, you can find great live and on-demand training designed to help you earn a good living making media you love at nancyfultonmeetups.com and nfm24.com. Our host is Nancy Fulton. Let's dive in.
My name is Nancy Fulton, and we're here today with Marilyn Anderson. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this particular interview is because Marilyn is actually a writer-producer, and I currently run events for 25,000 industry pros, and interestingly enough, about half of them are writer-producers or actor-producers. To see somebody who's been successful at doing that and to realize that they've actually been doing something significantly different is important. And the tips that Marilyn covers in How to Live Like a Millionaire When You're a Million Short are really important for writer-producers because they allow them to make the most of the money that they have while making the impression that they need to make in order to be successful. Marilyn has actually created a wide number of projects and has been very successful with them. And she's well known for her work on Carol and Company. She's a producer of How to Beat a Bully and the TV series Never Kiss a Frog. And she's worked with Walt Disney and Murphy Brown, one of my very favorite shows, as well as Friday's Curse. So what I'd like to do is, Marilyn, do you want to take a few minutes to talk a little bit about your background and how you've worked in the past as an actor-producer and sort of how you ended up developing the skills that you share with people in How to Live Like a Millionaire?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. It's nice to meet you all here. I came to Los Angeles after actually having another career. I started as I had a couple degrees in biology and physiology and worked at the National Academy of Sciences as a biomedical information specialist. And then one day I said, I don't want to do this. I want to be a star. So I quit my job, sold my car, sold my furniture, sold my boyfriend, didn't get much for him, and moved to New York to become a star. And as soon as I got to New York, I got into a Broadway show, and I sang and I danced and I acted. And I also, the show ended after 8 performances, not because I wasn't great, but because the show wasn't good. Anyway, I did some stand-up. I used to go on back-to-back with Jerry Seinfeld. And then one day I realized I either had to take a vacation or get a job. Well, let's see, vacation or job. So I took a vacation and I came out to LA, and I thought I'd be acting, but I started writing, and my writing got attention right away. The first script I wrote, I was very lucky. A big agent was interested, and a studio was interested, and it didn't get made then, but I got a lot of attention. And then I started writing for TV shows. By the way, not about biology. I sort of left that in the wings. So as Nancy said, I wrote, I was on staff at Carol and Company, which is a show that starred Carol Burnett, Richard Kind, and Jeremy Piven. And I wrote on Friday the 13th, the series, I Can Kill 6 People an Hour. Unfortunately, not the people of my choice. But mostly I do a lot of comedies. And interestingly enough, one of my screenplays, which ended up being How to Beat a Bully, it was optioned by Hollywood 8 times. And never made. And finally I said, no more options, not doing it anymore. And as soon as I decided that, everything started to happen. I went out, I raised the money myself, and we ended up in 6 months, we were cast and in production, and now the movie is out on iTunes and Amazon, and the DVD got picked up by Walmart, which is a big coup for a little movie. Of course, when I changed it from being a studio picture into being an indie, I had to take a few zeros off the end, and so I learned how to not only make the script work better at a lower budget, but how to make sure that I was able to do it at a lower budget. But all this time, Nancy and guests, while I was in LA, again, I had come from having a regular job, and I moved to LA, and of course, as a writer, sometimes you might make some money, but other times you could go weeks, months, even years without making any money. And it was amazing because I had friends who had regular jobs and they never had any money to do anything, whereas I didn't have a job, yet I was always traveling and going to theater and going out to restaurants and buying nice clothes. And people used to say, even my producer and writer friends used to say, how does Marilyn live? That was like the three questions of the universe, what is the meaning of life? Is there a God? And how does Marilyn live? So that's how I finally decided, after being asked so many times, that I would reveal my secrets and put together this book, which I'd been asked about. In fact, one of my writing partners told me he was very close with a TV producer who unfortunately passed away. But he said that on his deathbed, he didn't say, oh, say goodbye to my parents, or tell my friends so long, or I'm sorry I was such an a-hole. No, on his deathbed, he whispered, how does Marilyn live? So I am now revealing my secrets, and as you said, they're really useful, and they've been useful to me in my career as a writer-producer, because it's enabled me to live well and put together good material and projects, and not, seem like I don't have any money, because one of the secrets of success is you want to look successful. You don't want people to think you're desperate or needy. You want them to think, oh, this is a person who can really get things done and make them happen and be successful. And I think that that's one way that this book can really help people, because in addition to just enriching their lives as a person, it can help them with their business of writing and producing.
I definitely agree. When I read your book, I was shocked at feel like I'm pretty confident financially, and I have pretty good luck getting things at the right price. But nothing compares to the kind of things that you talked about in the book, and also the number of resources that you talked about that I'd never heard about before. And then when I visited them, I realized, my God, this is such a well-developed thing. Millions of people must be using this, and I never heard of it before. So I love the resources that you brought together. One of the things that you talked about, which I think is pertinent to both writers and screenwriters, as well as producers, is you talk about being able to entertain potential business associates or partners or investors, and whether you're taking them to, you want to take them out for a meeting or meet them someplace and buy them dinner, or whether you want to arrange larger events. And could you sort of talk a little bit about some of the solutions you found for doing that quickly, cost effectively?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I'll start with food, because we all have to eat, Mm-hmm. And, one thing, of course, it's really important. The whole business is built on relationships. In real estate, it's location, location, location. And in show business, it's network, network, network. And one of the most effective ways of doing this is when you do meet someone, reach out to them. Don't necessarily first reach out to them and say, oh, I need work, or I have a project. Try to make friends with them and say, hey, would you like to have drinks one night, or can I take you out for, a bite some night, or some afternoon? And so some of the things that I use all the time as far as food goes, first of all, a lot of expensive restaurants have happy hours. And even places like Ruth Chris or Fleming's Steakhouse or Lowry's, they all have happy hours. And although a steak there could cost $50, and so if you go for two, you're talking, $150 before you even have drinks, with appetizers or food or whatever. But with Chris, like, they have a happy hour where you can get a steak sandwich or a tuna tartare or a lobster roll for $9.
Wow.
And it's like from 5 to 7 every night. And you've got the ambience and the nice crowd of an upscale Ruth Chris or Fleming Steakhouse. I'm mentioning these because they're located everywhere. But you can find a place in your own neighborhood that, again, go to a nice place. Don't go to a little hole in the wall. Go to some place that will be impressive to whoever you're taking. And happy hours are great times, to do that. The other thing is I'm a firm believer in Groupons and Living Social, and they often have sales where you get things at Groupon or Living Social for 20% off or 30% off, or they'll give $10 to $20 to $30 off at Groupons or Living Social. Find places in your area that are nice. Buy a Groupon. Invite someone out for a meal. They don't have to know that you have a Groupon. Give it to the waiter, when you go to the men's room or the ladies' room. But it's a way to invite someone out, not spend a lot of money, and have them really appreciate. Another place that does this is blackboardeats.com, and they'll send you out. You don't have to pay in advance for this, but they'll give you a 30% discount if you use a code. And anytime you go there, you don't have to buy those in advance. There's also Yelp and Yipit that give discounts. And even restaurant.com is great for getting certificates. You can get a $25 certificate. Oh, they might say for $15, but they have sales all the time if you get their emails where you can get a $25 certificate to dine out someplace for only $3 or $2, or sometimes they even have them for $1. So when you see those, stock up on them and, invite somebody to dinner or happy hour or lunch and make friends with them. And that's how most deals come about. Whether you have an agent or a manager, I can honestly say when I was doing TV, especially, every single television job I got except for one was because I met somebody and, built a relationship with them. It was not about my agent sending me cold somewhere. So go to those places, make friends, invite them, have something to talk about other than just, oh, can I give you my script? Because you want to build a relationship, and that's where it comes from. The other thing that I love to do is I love to take people to live theater. And you can get so much from live theater as a writer-producer, not only, by keeping up with what's happening out there, but you can see actors and determine if you want to save them for a future project. You see talent, you see actors. Again, you meet and you network. And the way I do, there's some wonderful ways if you live in LA, and sometimes they're in other places too. And I'll tell you, to see theater at totally reduced prices. Most people know about goldstar.com, which is good, but my favorite in LA is a place called soldoutcrowd.com. They have one thing you can join for a year for $65, but I recommend the gold membership, which is $95. But you join for $95 for the entire year, and then you can go to theater almost any night of the week for a $4 service fee, and you can always get 2 tickets. Wow. And if you use my name, and when you join, actually you'll get your first 4 tickets without any service fee. So that's soldoutcrowd.com. There's also theaterextras.com, which is not only in LA, but it's in New York, it's in Las Vegas, it may be in some other places. There's philistete.com. But again, the good news is in LA, they get the biggest theaters in town as well as all the little theaters, and you can find really good actors there. But when you meet somebody, invite them to a show, get tickets to a show at the Amundsen or the Geffen, and call them up, say, hey, I have tickets, would you like to come? People will be very impressed by this. Hey, and oftentimes they'll want to take you to dinner first. But I go to theater, 2 or 3 times a week. So I see all the talent that's out there. I keep a file of the actors that really impressed me in case I want to use them in the future, and I try to meet as many people. And this is a way, because you can get 2 tickets to every show, to really look like you're being, magnanimous and even, you're going to look like somebody who's got a lot of class. If you say to somebody, would you like to come to a play at the Amundsen with me? Would you like to come to a play at the Geffen or the Wallace-Annenberg? And in the meantime, you're having a great time yourself. So then there's also pay what you can. Places like Tim Robbins Theater in Culver City, every single Thursday night, whatever the show is, you can do a pay what you can. So you can go there, and if tickets are normally $30 or $40, you can give $10, you can give $5, you can go in for $1. Again, whether you invite somebody else or whether you go yourself. And just when I went there, Tim Robbins was in the lobby and I talked to him. So it's a way to get yourself out and know what's happening in the theater, know who the actors are, and meet people and have a great time without spending a lot of money. Then, of course, there's also lotteries and rush tickets. Some of the people may know that Hamilton does offer $10 lottery tickets for the front row if you're lucky. Now, it used to be some shows you could go and just, and this is in New York too, stand in line 2 hours before the theater. Actually, not even stand in line, just go 2 hours, put your name in a bowl, and they'll call it out. But after the advent of Hamilton, because there were 400 people standing on the sidewalk, they decided to start doing digitally. So the good news is you don't have to go down to the theater every night. The bad news is you're in a pool of much more people, so the odds are harder. But it is possible, and can you imagine how impressed somebody would be if you called them up and say, "Hey, I have Hamilton tickets in 2 days. Would you like to go?"
Wow.
I don't know anybody who would turn that one down.
Mm. That's totally true. I mean, so you've been using these. I hadn't really thought about the ways in which you're actually creating relationships with people by taking them to events or taking them out for food. It's an interesting approach, particularly for writers who are looking for work, or for actors who are looking for work, or for filmmakers who need to be able to find investors, or need to create a relationship with investors prior to pitching them.
It's all about relationships. I mean, even one of the jobs I got on a TV show, I was at a party, and I'm the funny thing is that, when I'm with authority figures, I'm a little bit shy, but I have a drink and I'm not as shy. But I saw Dom Belisario there, and I at the time he had the show Quantum Leap. And I mean, I loved the show Quantum Leap. It was like one of my favorite shows, and I didn't expect to write for it because at the time I was just doing comedies. But I loved it. So I went up to him and I told him my true feelings, how I thought it worked historically and dramatically and humor. He said, "Would you like to come and pitch?" I mean, I wasn't there because I wanted to do that, but I said yes. Well, he ended up having me go in and pitch. He wasn't even working on the show anymore, and he never even read anything I wrote. But it's because in that little bit of time, I made a relationship. The same thing happened with me. I went to a Christmas party, and I met Bob Cosberg, who was the pitch king, and he said, "Do you have an idea for a film?" I met him at a Christmas party, and I went to see him the following week, pitched him 3 sentences, and we went and we sold that movie to Paramount based on a 3-sentence pitch. But again, it was somebody that I met and connected with, and relationships are everything. So it's much better if you can meet somebody and strike up a relationship in some way than necessarily, going and just say, "Oh, will you read my script?" They'd rather give it to somebody they like or they're friends with or who has, shown an interest in them, Mm-hmm. And if you invite somebody somewhere and you get to know them, that's really the best way to create long-lasting relationships. I mean, I know you've worked with Wendy Cram before, yes. And I met Wendy Cram a long time ago, and after I met her, and we had come to know each other, I pitched something to her and she liked it, but nothing ever happened. Well, 10 years later, she called me and she said, "Do you still have that script? Because I can't stop thinking about it." I said, "Yes." Well, we went and we sold it to Lifetime. And it was like 10 years after I had pitched it to her. But we maintained the relationship, and she remembered my story, and we sold it together.
You also make a really good point. The other thing, you also make a really good point about the fact that you're developing a relationship with people. Because when it comes, especially when you're accepting, you're finding people that you're going to work with as collaborators, or you're talking to people that are, might be investors, you really want to get to know them before you take their money or before you attach them to your project. And one of the best ways to do that is socially, before there's money on the table. Because if they're jerks, if they're jerks to the wait staff, or they're people that as you get to know them, you don't like them, you certainly don't want to get married to them by, involving them in a project you care about.
Yeah, and a lot of times, even when you are friendly with somebody and you have a good relationship, working with them can sometimes end up a different way. So you certainly want to start out that way. But even with my movie, How to Beat a Bully, that I made, that was, I ran into somebody at a party, and he remembered me from before. We had known each other, and he was looking for the kind of property that I had, and I had raised the money. I had 80% of it, and he wanted to get involved, and he brought in the other 20%. And this was, again, from running into somebody and from having a long-term, I knew him for years before we actually put this movie together. Mm-hmm. So you just never know. And that's the other thing is you have to remember what you want, keep it in the back of your mind, and then when that moment comes, you got to carpe diem, seize the moment. And that's a part of my book, too, is I talk about rules to live by. And one of the, or some people say rules to live by, I say rules to live like a millionaire by.
Mhm.
And the first thing is ask. I say make an ask of yourself. Because if you don't ask people about things, then you won't know. And even when I go into stores, if you see something that you like and it's too expensive, well, you should ask, is it going to go on sale? And the next rule is to make friends. You want to make friends with people because even the sales clerk, let me know when it goes on sale, and then come in. Can you do any better? And also match prices. Even, we're all writers and filmmakers. How many of us use office supplies? Do you know that it's Staples and Best Buy, they'll price match? So a lot of times they'll have something on sale there, and they'll say it's on sale for this price. And if you look on your phone, you can find it much cheaper than it is, quote unquote, on sale there. But they will always match prices. And the same is true like at Nordstrom's. So I say, always ask if it's going to go on sale, and also ask if they match prices, because I do that all the time when I buy any kind of office supplies or a printer or a computer or anything. Don't just assume because it's on sale that it's the best price, because oftentimes it's not.
Wow. One of the things you touched on, particularly when you're talking about entertaining, is the fact that people, you talked about talking to store clerks when you're buying clothing and stuff, saying, is this going to be going on sale? Can you talk about the ways in which you can use the ways in which you can dress more attractively and or acquire costumes or stuff for actors to wear if you're putting on a production? Because I think it's one of the most expensive things people have to face in Los Angeles is finding good clothing that's attractive, that makes you look great, on the kind of budgets that wax and wane based upon whether or not you got work this particular week.
Right. Well, one of the things, that I think is phenomenal and that is happening now, there are a lot of places that have started like renting out clothes. Like renttherunway.com is a great place where you can literally get a $2,000 dress, wear it for $50 and send it back, and no shipping fees and no cleaning fees or anything. And renttherunway.com is one, latote.com is one, and GwinnieB.com, and there's more of those coming up. And I particularly like it if you do, work at a production company or something. You're lucky enough to have a development job or something, and you want to look great every day. They even have an unlimited option where you pay $139 a month, and you can just get a dress, send it back, get another dress. I call it the Netflix of fashion.
Wow.
And I think, wow, it's just, you could write, and also going to parties, if you're in Hollywood and you want to go to parties and network, but you don't want to spend the money. Oh, in the past, people would say, well, I'd buy a dress and take it back. But this is something I think is even better, because literally it's like Netflix. You get a dress, you wear it, you send it back, and you always look great. Then, of course, there's also shopping, and this is good for if you need props or furniture, like for sets and stuff, is find places in your neighborhood, thrift shops, where rich people donate. I mean, my favorite place in Los Angeles is the Jewish Women's Council thrift shop. I mean, I found a couch there for it cost $10,000 new. I got it for $200. It's amazing looking. But the thing is, if you need sets or something, you can get something, and if it's used like that, then you can sell it afterwards. Going back to clothes, there's also places you can get jewelry or even sell your jewelry. How many of us have this is a way to finance your movie, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
I had like jewelry that my grandmother gave me like when I was 12 years old, and I had it, but I hadn't worn it like for years and years. So I called up this place, therealreal.com, and again, you can use my name as a referral. And I took them some of my old jewelry that I never wore, and I got a $5,000 check from them. So you can buy stuff there, but you can also sell stuff that you have, and they'll come to your house and pick it up, and they take designer clothes, and they also take, good jewelry. Or they have an office in Century City that you can go to. Then there's other places online like threadup.com, poshmark.com, and tradesy.com, where, again, you don't have to just go to your local place, but you can buy and sell clothes online like that, make some money for your old stuff, or if you've used stuff in a show, sell it that way if you can't sell it yourself. But here's another thing that actually everybody should do as soon as they get off this call, because you might have money that you don't know about. And people laugh. I told a friend of mine who was a writer from he had lived in Texas a long time ago, and now he lives in Philadelphia. And I told him about this, and he didn't believe me, and he kept saying, it's a scam, it's a scam. And I said, no, it's not. And he filled out the papers that I made him fill out. He didn't want to do it. And he got a letter saying, you're getting a check from Texas. He did not believe me. And then like about 3 weeks later, he got a check for $12,000.
Wow.
And all he had to do was fill out forms. And what it is a lot of us have money that we don't even know we have, and it's called unclaimed property. So everybody should go to missingmoney.com, or another site is naupa.org, naupa.org, and see if you or your parents or your grandparents, a lot of us have, they might have money, or your grandparents might have money, and even if they are no longer with us, if you can prove that you're related to them, that you're descended from them, people have actually millions of dollars that's just sitting there doing nothing, waiting for the right person to claim it. Well, if you can claim some money, you can actually use it towards your next production, instead of having that old piece of jewelry in your closet, or instead of not knowing that you or your grandparents or great-grandparents had money. It's something that everybody should go do, because there's a lot of money out there that part of which could be yours.
Well, I also especially think that's true for people that have run businesses before, or people who come from entrepreneurial families. Because what happens is you set up a business, and how many of us have set up a business and you have to put money into like some stupid escrow account or whatever, or you put there's just a million reasons that the government wants money, for some stupid thing or another. And then when that business goes away, or you don't, the money, they still have the money, and they've no reason, unless you ask them for it, they're not going to give it back. And it's really true. If anybody that's ever owned a business, or anybody who comes from a family that's owned a business, it's incredible how much money just gets sucked into that system and never comes back out again.
Well, it's also, I have a friend who was a writer, and he'd lived in different places, but also he'd written for a lot of different companies. Here, I went online, and he has 20 different claims that he can file for money. And it comes from old residuals or old royalties that, he's moved around. A lot of people in our business, they do move, whether it's from a different city to come to L.A., or whether it's from a different apartment to a new apartment, and somehow things get lost along the way, whether it's old bank accounts or, as I said, a lot of residuals. I bet tons of actors have money, or even writers, from old royalties and stuff that they just don't know exists, and it's just sitting there. So I definitely recommend that to people too.
I think another thing you just touched on is very interesting. Almost everybody that works in the entertainment industry, I mean, it's a mecca for people to come to Los Angeles and or to move to New York, or to float back and forth between them. So people are traveling all of the time. Also, people that are putting together productions often have to arrange for the people that are going to be appearing in the production to go to places like Georgia, or to go to some location. And if you're paying list price for travel for yourself and for other people, then you're eating into your production budget. Or if you're traveling to get to gigs that you want to do, you're eating into the budget you need to eat on. Can you sort of talk about how people can travel more cost effectively than they might know?
Well, the first thing, I always think to do is, when you open up a credit card, find a credit card that gives you like $65,000 when you open up a credit card, and they'll give you money, if you spend a certain amount in your first 3 months. And I think American Airlines now has a card where, like I said, if you spend, $2,000 or $3,000 in your first 3 months, you get an immediate 65,000 miles into your account, and then keep using that card when you spend on things, so you get a lot of miles. Then, of course, every time you go to a new place, I want you to use this book, How to Live Like a Millionaire When You're a Million Short, so that in that city you can take advantage of all the things that there are to do, because there are things to do in every city that you can get at less than regular cost. And another thing, and I will come back to travel in a minute, is, as a woman, I have like really long hair, and it grows really fast, and getting your hair done can cost literally a small fortune or a big fortune. And also, if you have actors who need their hair done, well, I always I can get my hair done free 90% of the time. And that's because I go as a hair model. And people say to me, wait a minute, I'm not thin, I'm not gorgeous, I'm not young. Well, the only thing you have to have to be a hair model, you only need one thing, hair. And that's for both women and men, too. So if you go to salonapprentice.com, it's in a lot of different cities. It'll tell you places that they're looking for hair models, and it could be for haircuts, for blow dries, for color. It could be for anything. The other thing is go to Craigslist and look under beauty and put model in the search bar, and tons of things will pop up where they need hair models. And you can do that both for yourself, or if you need to get, somebody for your shoot styled, and you have no money in the budget to do it. So take advantage of that. The other thing is too, cosmetics. Well, we know there's department stores that all have wonderful makeup counters, and they love to do makeup for people. So go get your makeup done there before you're doing a shoot. The other thing is call a cosmetology school in the area. Oftentimes they have makeup artists who just want the experience of working on a film, and they'll come. I had one do my whole web series. She didn't charge a nickel. She just wanted to be part of that experience. And I got her through calling a cosmetology school. And sometimes a new hairstylist will do the same thing. More about the travel, when you're going to other places, there are, just by virtue of going to new places, be they in the U.S. or abroad, you're learning about new cultures and stuff. But there are a lot of places where if you don't have money to travel, you can actually get free vacation stays by volunteering. And you can do this. There's all kinds of places in the U.S., either farms, or there's a Habitat for Humanity where you go there and you learn so much for the people. You get a free vacation. You're helping the people there in one way or another. I talk about there's a place in Spain that you can literally get a 6-night stay at a 4-star resort in Spain for free. And people said, oh, that sounds crazy. Well, it does, but it's true. And my girlfriend went, and she said it was the best vacation she'd ever had. And she met people who've been there 15 times. And the thing is, you're getting all kinds of experience. You're meeting new people, and you can put this into your next screenplay or into your next, web series or whatever. And that's one of the things about writing is what I've learned is never take the easy way out. Always try to find the most interesting characters and interesting characteristics. That, I think, is what's really missing so much in a lot of the screenplays that I read, and I read a ton of screenplays because I'm a judge for a really big contest as well. And so try to make your characters really special in unique ways. Everybody you meet out there is unique and different, and they're not just flat cardboard characters. And by getting out there in the world and going different places and meeting different people, write down some of their quirky characteristics so that you can use them the next time you create a character. Because that, I think, is what it makes a screenplay great, is memorable characters and memorable scenes. And then how much it costs to do it isn't as important as what shows up in the story and the characters and the scenes.
I think that's really good advice, and it's really smart. Actually, I was interested to learn, when I first met you, I think Wendy had mentioned that you'd written the book, but she'd also mentioned that you were a producer. So it wasn't until I met you that I realized that you were a prolific writer. And also that you were a judge for big contests. And do you think when you're helping writers actually fix up their work or prep their work so that it's actually ready to be seen by agents and managers and producers. Do you think that your background as a producer and your understanding of how to produce more cost effectively and thus more quickly, do you think that really weighs into the kind of advice that you can offer writers that makes their screenplay somewhat more attractive to the market?
Well, I think the first thing is that screenwriters should write something they're passionate about. I mean, I don't think you should write to the market just because, oh, I'm going to write this because this is what's happening now. Because if this is what's happening now, then when yours gets made a year or 2 years from now, it might not be what's happening now. So I truly believe you have to write what you're passionate about. And if it's not, quote unquote autobiographical, then it's obviously something that you've done research on, which is fine too. But right now I think you want to make things as special and unique as you can, and you want it to stand out. And of course, the first few pages, I think everybody knows, are so important. You want to start it off with a bang. You want to start it off with something that really grabs somebody's attention. And like I said, part of the process. I mean, I love telling stories. I love making twists and turns and surprises. And I think one of the things that really makes scripts great is like I say, unique characters and memorable scenes. People remember from The Godfather, oh my God, the horse that was in the horse's head in the bed. I mean, that's a memorable scene. Scenes from A Clockwork Orange, whether it's a horror movie or whether it's a romantic comedy, it's the scenes and the characters that really stand out. And that, I think, is one of the most important things. Obviously you want the execution to be great, but in doing that, I mean, I'm really somebody who deals with a lot of craft and making things work and making them, follow and make sense. And when I go to a movie and there's big holes in the plot, it drives me crazy because I take a lot of care in putting it all together and knowing that it all flows and makes sense. But I love, surprises. And I just saw Coco, and it's a wonderfully written script. In addition, it's an animated, and the animation is wonderful. But what else is wonderful about that script is they've created a world that we haven't seen before, and they put these characters into this world, and then there's surprises along the way. It's not just, oh, it's going to be this, and it's going to be that. They really tell a lot of great. They introduce us to a new world, and then they make twists and turns, and I do recommend it. I mean, it's not just a kids' movie. It's really fun, the animated movie. So I do recommend that.
Yeah, well, it's like I've been looking forward to seeing that for a long time, actually. So what we should do is because I want to make sure people have a chance to ask questions. If you have any questions that you'd like Marilyn to answer, I hope you'll send me an email at nancy.fulton@yahoo.com. That's nancy.fulton@. I think one more thing I wanted to address just briefly, because it's something I'd never heard. You mentioned in the book that it's possible to travel on cruises, and I think for a lot of writers who really enjoy being able to take sort of a leisurely vacation and still have a place to plug in their computer that they feel safe, cruises represent a real opportunity. Can you talk for just a few minutes about the solutions that you found for traveling on the ocean a little bit more cost effectively than, say, the $10,000 they often want to charge you for getting on the boat? Right. Well, there's a few different ways to do it. One of the ways, of course, is if you're a good speaker. They have a couple of different kinds of speakers on cruises that you can sign up to be either an enrichment speaker or a destination speaker. For instance, if you know a lot about a certain place, you can sign up, if you know the ins and outs of particular things in Spain and or in France or in Panama. You find cruises that are going there and look on where they're looking. And in my book, I have different websites. I don't have them off the top of my head, but where they do book either enrichment speakers or destination speakers.
And so you can sign up to be a speaker. Then again, if you're an actor or a singer and you want to work for a while, of course, they do hire people at 6-month or yearly contracts to perform on a cruise. And certainly you'll get tons of stories and experience if you do that. But if you just want to do it, a few times here and there. I know I have a comedian friend. He couldn't get arrested in LA. He was trying to do all the shows. He couldn't. Well, he moved to Florida, and he started booking himself as a comedian on cruises, and he has literally been all over the world now and being paid really great money, and they'll fly him out. He won't necessarily have to take the whole cruise, but they'll fly him out to a destination and he'll perform on the cruise, and then he can either cruise back or fly back, and usually you can take a friend as well. Then also, cruises are usually they usually charge like the expensive prices if they're going one way, but a lot of times going the opposite way, it's not as expensive, and they're called repo cruises or repositioning cruises. So you can often get a better deal if you go on the return trip rather than on the first trip. And the same thing is they're now having a lot of last-minute bookings on cruises, because they don't make anything if a cruise goes out and a bunch of cabins are empty. So if a cruise is leaving, in a couple of days and they haven't filled it up, there are ways then to find out and to bargain with them in terms of getting on at the last minute, because they do want to fill those cabins. So those are ways to do it too.
Those sound perfect. So we actually got a question come in. Somebody wanted, hold on one second. Let me actually open the email. Cool. So the first question we had is that can you repeat the website for unclaimed money?
Oh, because there's two websites. Yeah. The first one is missingmoney.com. And a lot of states are on there. So if you just put in your name and the state in which you live, or if you've lived in other states, don't forget to include all the places that you used to live as well as where you live now, because it's done by state. And some of the states that are not on there, like California, isn't on there. But the other place to go is naupa.org, which is NAUPA.org. And you can look up where your state's unclaimed property is, and then go to the states where you've lived. And like I said, don't just check for yourself. Check for your parents. Check for your grandparents. Check for your great-grandparents and the state where they may have lived, because there could be a bunch of money just sitting there waiting for you.
That is really cool. So another question we have, which I think is really interesting, because it relates to the fact that everybody on the call is actually working in the entertainment industry. Are there any particular happy hours or any particular events for where you think it's particularly good places to invite people for happy hour here in Los Angeles, if you sort of want to impress them?
Well, there's so many places in Los Angeles. I mean, I don't know them all, but I know that Ruth Chris has a happy hour. If you want a more small, intimate place, I live near Beverly Hills, and my favorite place to go is Il Fica Pizzeria. It's a small Italian restaurant between 4 and 6 every night, or after 9 o'clock every night. They have 10 different wonderful food items for $7, and it's a little quieter place. The best thing to do is really call up a place and ask if they have a happy hour, or if you're going by there, go in and ask to see the menu, look at the room, see if it's a place that you'd feel comfortable, inviting somebody, because we have so many great restaurants here. I live near 3rd. I just moved actually recently, and I live near 3rd Street, near Beverly Hills, and there's so many restaurants up and down 3rd Street, and a lot of them do have happy hours. So I used to live in the Marina, and as I said, there was Ruth Chris there. There was it depends if you want a quiet place, if you want a bustling place.
I think they're looking for some place that like the industry crowd would hang out at and think, wow, this is sort of she, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It just depends. The other thing I would say, is for everyone to look at some of the networking groups that are out there and that are having things. The Blacklist, of course, is a big organization that has a lot of power. If you get a script that's on the Blacklist, you become really important. Well, they, I think, have happy hours. I think there's one coming up December 6th every month. I think this one is at the Umbrella Factory on Melrose. And I think once a month they have happy hours that you can go to. And there's a lot of other groups that sponsor things and, you know, get out there and meet people at all these things. You can go to eventbrite.com and look at the events that are coming up. Go to Facebook groups and ask about where there might be, you know, people going. The other thing is sometimes I think, you know, if you're looking for investors, I would say get out of Hollywood, get out of the Hollywood crowd, because a lot of times the people who want to invest are, you know, if you're at a Hollywood function, you know, everybody there is looking for money. Whereas if you find dentists in Florida, a lot of people raise money from dentists, I've understood. So you may want to go back to your hometown to do some fundraising. Or, of course, there's Kickstarter and there's Indiegogo and there's GoFundMe. There's all those crowdsourcing things as well.
That's true.
But yeah, so the idea is to spend less and have more fun and make more contacts and friends.
That's really smart, actually. It's really, I can't believe the depth and breadth of the advice that you provided. And is there a way that people can reach out to you? First of all, people should go onto Amazon and Google your book, because I think it's a resource everybody needs. And it's you've mentioned probably 30 or 40 different resources when in your talk, and your book is filled with literally, it has to be thousands. So I think that people should Google the book, How to Live Like a Millionaire When You're a Million Short. But if people want to reach out to you for your advice on producing or for help with a screenplay, is there a way that they can reach you? Is there a way that people can reach you going forward?
Absolutely. You can reach me at howtolivelikeamillionaire@gmail.com. Or you can also go to my website, which will also give you links to the book on Amazon, which is just howtolivelikeamillionaire.com. And I also have, there's also a Facebook page for How to Live Like a Millionaire, so you can reach me through that.
Very cool. And is there a way for people to, are you going to be running an event or anything, or do you have something coming up that you want to invite people to?
Well, actually on the 10th, I'm going to be doing, with some other people, an in-person signing and sale. I call my book, actually, it's the gift that keeps on giving, because if you give it to somebody, they'll be able to use it all year long, whether they're a filmmaker or a regular person. It's got so much information. So I will be doing an event in Marina del Rey. I don't have on the 10th from 1 to 5. And, I'm going to have other events coming up, but I don't have the exact dates. But if you email me or get on my email list and you want to know, I'd be happy to give you information when I'm going to be doing in-person events or signings. Because it's I've used it in my life as a producer and writer, but I just gave a talk last week at a financial planner's office, and we had 40 people in the audience, and it was very gratifying because I gave them all this information that they were able to use as well. And then the other thing, I just want to let everybody know to use your resources. When we were shooting How to Beat a Bully, we lost 3 of our locations, and we had a really short shoot. And I went out the next day and, they were saying, oh, we got to shut down. We lost 3 locations. Craigslist is such a great resource. I went on Craigslist and I got us 3 days at a studio downtown. They didn't charge us anything. We had it for free. I got a stable with horses. We ended up putting horses in the movie because I got us a stable, with horses included. And then the other thing is, don't always go to, places that are on studio lists and stuff for locations, because they're going to charge you the most because they know, oh, it's a production. But go to your friends, go to your family, go to Craigslist, see if you can find resources without, going to places that are going to charge you top dollar.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's really good advice. It's one of the reasons I tell people they should, people say, I'm going to come to LA to make a movie, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe you should stay where you are and make a movie, because I bet it's cheaper. The other thing
well,
is,
not only that, but local businesses, if you're in a small town, local businesses love the idea of helping you make a movie. And,
right.
It's, and again, if you go to where you're from, you're a big deal. You're a Hollywood writer going to a new town. I mean, when I wrote my first book, I went to Austin, and I called their news station. Now, if I called a news station here, they would say, "What do you mean? We've got Tom Cruise, we've got, all these people, Meryl Streep, we've got all these people." But if I go to a small town and I tell them I'm a Hollywood writer, they put me on the news station there, and they ran my interview 8 times during
I believe that.
the day. Because
I absolutely believe
when you go out of town, you're suddenly the big Hollywood writer or producer. When you're in Hollywood, you're not. And the same is true with investors. If you go to a smaller town and reach out to people there, you're a big deal.
I think that's really brilliant advice. And so we've had a couple more questions come in. One, and I want to let you. I feel I should let you go, but I also feel like these people want to ask you questions, and you're the perfect person to ask, actually. So, do you have any advice on where to rent cars and how to rent vehicles more cost effectively?
Well, these days, I think it's particularly easier. I actually mention a lot of that in the book, and I don't have it, off the top of my head now. But of course, with Uber and everything. But I mean, one thing is if you want to get a sports card, there are some sports card driving clubs, and instead of buying one for the whole year to look impressive, just rent one for a weekend or rent one from your show. And there's car sharing places too, where people will share their cars, just like there's Airbnbs. There's now places where individual owners will rent their cars and put them up. So there's a lot of possibilities for getting cars too, depending if you want it just for a shoot or if you want it to use, yourself for a year or a month or whatever.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. So, one more thing, as before we wind up, people should definitely go check out your film. The one that you've produced, you've mentioned a couple of times, called "How to Beat a Bully," because I think, as you mentioned, they will be surprised. It's because you have it's clear that you have a background in comedy, because it's really not about beating a bully to death.
That's a Home Alone kind of comedy with an anti-bullying theme.
Yes.
Because so many stories of bullying are sad or depressing or unhappy. We wanted to put something together that could give kids and parents smiles and laughs, yet still promote the idea it's better to be friends than bullies.
That is, people should definitely go watch that, and it's on iTunes, and is it on Amazon as well?
It's on Amazon, and it's actually, if you have Amazon Prime, it's free to watch too.
Ooh, excellent! I shall definitely go. I shall definitely take a look at it and make my kids watch it. But I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed interviewing you, and you really have provided a wealth of information to the people listening today, and more importantly, I really think they should go get the book. I think it is an invaluable resource for writers and producers who are working in the entertainment industry. It really can eat you alive with cost, particularly in Los Angeles, and you've really provided an incredible number of very practical solutions that I think people will end up using every day. Several of the things that you mentioned, I like the restaurants.com. I literally, you're right, you become an addict. You go, I can go there. I didn't even know this place existed, and now I have to go. Now I really want to go see it, and it's very cost effective, and it is possible to actually take people take people out cost effectively, and I think it's how this business runs. So
Right. So I expect all your callers to now write me and say they want to take me to dinner, right?
well, it's definitely true. So say your email address one more time.
Well, you can reach me at howtolivelikeamillionaire@gmail.com,
Mm-hmm.
and the website with other links is at howtolivelikeamillionaire.com.
I think what you're more likely to have happen is they're going to call up and invite you to go out. So anyway, but thank you very much.
We can all meet for happy hour.
Actually, that sounds. Let me know if you ever want to have a happy hour event. I will take you out. But anyway, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. You are truly amazing.
Thank you so much, Nancy. It was great fun. I really appreciate it.
Take care. All right, goodbye, everyone. I hope you have an excellent day. You've just heard Nancy Fulton's interview with Marilyn Anderson on how to live like a millionaire when you're a million short for writers and producers. Copyright 2017 by Nancy Fulton. All rights reserved.
Thanks for listening to the Hollywood Insider Podcast. If you have questions you'd like answered, guests you would like to suggest, or topics you'd like us to cover, please email Nancy at nancyfultonmeetups.com. If you like what you hear, please click to follow the podcast and give us a kind word in the comments. If you find our thoughts and suggestions help you, please share our podcast with other creators who need help. We love being of service to creative minds. This podcast is produced by No Better Friend Entertainment, and this audio recording was copyrighted in 2024. All rights reserved. Music for this episode is licensed for commercial use from pond5.com.